derecho humano que aporta la justicia social. Y para ello vamos a tener dos grandes bloques, ¿verdad? Uno primero, que van a estar conmigo compartiendo y otros compañeros y compañeras, en donde vamos a poco profundizar sobre dos elementos fundamentales para que la educación sea transformadora. La democracia como un principio fundamental que posibilita el nacimiento de la educación transformadora y la justicia social, ambiental y económica como horizonte de nuestra educación. Para la gente que se está conectando, que quiera hacer el tema de la traducción, tenemos en diferentes idiomas, entiendo portugués, inglés, también hablaban, se me acaba de ir la palabra al otro idioma, así que pido mil disculpas. Las opciones están en la barra de abajo como para que puedan ustedes acceder a las traducciones en árabe. Muchas gracias y mil disculpas, ¿verdad? Ahí van a poder encontrar también las traducciones para hacer seguimiento dependiendo del idioma que hablen, ¿verdad? Invitamos también a lo largo de toda esta mañana, tarde, a ir compartiendo sus preguntas, comentarios, reflexiones en el chat, de modo que podamos, al término de las conversaciones de los panelistas, que podamos nosotros compartir esas preguntas y dialogar en este espacio, ¿verdad? Esperamos pueda ser lo más fructífero posible y que pueda ser con la mayor libertad. Entonces los animamos a compartir, plantear y preguntar, ¿verdad? Volviendo un poco a nuestro evento, vamos a iniciar esta mañana con Fernando Santana, que es co-coordinador del grupo de trabajo del Consejo Latinoamericano de Ciencias Sociales, CLACSO, Educación Popular y Pedagogías Críticas, que va a tratar sobre la importancia de la democracia para la educación transformadora. Le agradecemos muchísimo a Fernando poder tomarse el tiempo y compartir con nosotros esta mañana. Fernando tiene 10 minutitos como para iniciar, digamos, el primer arranque de este primer bloque. Y luego vamos a estar con una panelista más y una compañera de la CLADE, que es Nelcy, que nos va a ayudar un poco a hacer la reflexión. Entonces, iniciamos, Fernando. Te hago el conteo de los 10 minutos y te marco en caso que pase un poquito el tiempo, ¿verdad? Muchísimas
Genial. Bueno,
gracias.
muchísimas gracias a vos, Ángeles, por esta introducción y por la presentación, y también por traer a la memoria y a comentar la jornada de lucha que tenemos hoy en Argentina. Resulta, como bien decías, más que pertinente estar teniendo esta actividad en los marcos de esta jornada, que para quienes no conocen, digo, quienes no saben, no sé, no lo sepan, digamos, hoy en Argentina se está haciendo una marcha federal educativa que tiene que ver con reivindicar el derecho al acceso a la educación pública frente a una política de no financiamiento, frente a una política de vaciamiento, frente a una política que lo que está haciendo es priorizar al sector privado por encima de lo público. Bueno, la respuesta hoy del campo popular organizado tiene que ver con esta gran marcha federal. Así que bueno, esperemos que permita torcer voluntades que no hay a nivel político, y sobre todo que podamos seguir levantando la bandera de la educación pública gratuita y de calidad, que siempre es una bandera que ha identificado al pueblo argentino. Eh, bueno, dicho esto, agradecer primero a la CLADE, digo, a esta campaña latinoamericana por el derecho a la educación, por esta invitación, a Pablo Gomaro, secretario académico de CLACSO, que ha pensado en mí para ocupar también este lugar. Y allí lo primero que quiero traer a partir de la temática que se me invita a conversar es que no puede haber democracia si no hay justicia social, como primer punto. Y en ese sentido, me pregunto también, digo, y a partir de lo que fueron los análisis de los tiempos post pandemia o mismo de la pandemia, hasta qué punto podemos hablar de democracia en un sistema tan desigual, también en el plano educativo, como lo es el caso latinoamericano, en donde vimos también que la mayoría o gran mayoría de nuestros jóvenes y nuestras juventudes no han podido terminar la educación secundaria, en donde vemos también que se sigue reproduciendo esta lógica en la que, según el nivel de acceso, el nivel de ingreso económico, las posibilidades de, riesgo, de éxito o fracaso en el sistema escolar. En ese sentido, entonces, la pregunta tiene que ver hasta qué punto, entonces, en sociedades tan desiguales, con una raíz tan honda de desigualdad, es posible pensar y construir una educación democrática, en donde justamente no se trate solamente del acceso es decir, de poder acceder a esa educación, que sin duda también es parte de una conquista y es parte de lo que se pelea y lo que se busca, pero que sea también un espacio en que lo puedan habitar, un espacio donde puedan ser parte, un espacio que los convoque a estar, y en donde, por ejemplo, en Argentina se habla de que el 50% de los jóvenes que no terminan la educación secundaria. Y no la terminan, digo, y especialmente quienes no la terminan son los hogares obreros o los hogares proletarios. Entonces, digo, sobre la base de un sistema, digamos, profundamente desigual y no equitativo, digo, tenemos que pensar allí cómo construir propuestas democráticas, propuestas participativas, propuestas transformadoras, que los inviten y las inviten a esas juventudes justamente a ser parte y a estar. Y en ese sentido, entonces, de lo que se trata también es de pensar en otras escuelas, de pensar en otra educación, de pensar en otras formas de plantear el hecho pedagógico, y en ese sentido pensar desde lo plural y desde lo diverso. Justamente como señalaba Ángeles en mi presentación, yo estoy co-coordinando dentro de la CLACSO lo que es un grupo de trabajo de educación popular y de pedagogías críticas, y ya esa adscripción y esa definición en concebirme a mí mismo como educador popular supone también allí una apuesta por esa educación transformadora y una apuesta por entender que las instituciones, las escuelas, la educación, y más allá de la educación, porque también tenemos, perdón, y más allá de lo escolar, porque también es necesario pensar lo educativo más allá de las instituciones escolares o de las instituciones formativas. Justamente digo, desde la educación popular tenemos que entender que no se puede ser neutral y tenemos que plantear allí y plantearnos y posicionarnos desde una opción ética y desde una opción profundamente política. Y esa opción política tiene que ir de la mano de entender entonces eh, que toda práctica educativa es una práctica política, que en toda práctica educativa se está a favor de alguien, se está en contra de alguien, y si hay un para qué, o sea, hay un algo, hay un por qué que se busca generar. Y en ese sentido, entonces, digo, para posicionarnos desde la educación popular o desde las educaciones populares significa creer en el sentido profundamente humano de lo que somos y entender que no se puede condenar a nadie al no ser, que no se puede condenar a nadie a la ignorancia, no se puede condenar a nadie al no acceso al conocimiento, al no acceso a, a una vida más justa y más digna en última instancia. Entonces, una educación para ser transformadora tiene que ser una educación que permita, desde la educación popular, generar, construir conciencia social. Y eso va a ser posible a la medida que, o a partir del diálogo. Pero el diálogo como principio pedagógico, el diálogo como principio humano, el diálogo como principio de construcción de conocimiento, el diálogo como una invitación a encontrar en el otro o en la otra justamente digo, la posibilidad de ser más, de ir por más, de construir por más. Entonces, volviendo a la pregunta o a pensar este eje de la democracia y de las escuelas para la democracia y para la transformación, quiero quedarme en esto, de que una educación que sea verdaderamente transformadora tiene que contribuir a generar procesos de fortalecimiento de la vida democrática. Y justamente para fortalecer esa vida democrática es necesario concebir a la escuela como un espacio democrático. Y eso supone entonces el revisar, el repensar, el modificar, el cambiar ciertas estructuras que se encuentran muy anquilosadas, muy ancladas, y que muchas veces terminan generando esa desigualdad o terminan generando mecanismos que son expulsivos o que terminan generando expulsiones escolares. Entonces, creo que desde la educación popular se trata de ampliar, por un lado, la idea de lo educativo, entender que lo educativo va más allá de lo escolar y entender también entonces que es necesario educarnos y educar en la politicidad, educar, la política tiene una educabilidad. Y en tiempos tan sombríos como los que vivimos, en tiempos tan oscuros como los que vivimos, en el caso argentino, digo, como momento emblemático, creo que también, digo, una educación para la democracia, digo, tiene que ser una educación que nos permita construir y formarnos en la esperanza. No la esperanza, acá me vuelvo freireano y entiendo que la esperanza no es un acto pasivo de la espera individual o quietista o fija que suponga casi esperar el designio divino que haga que se modifiquen las estructuras, no. Entiendo que la esperanza como una construcción activa y como el resultado de la acción de hombres y de mujeres concretos y concretas que permiten y actúan para transformar el mundo. Entonces, creo que en mundos como el nuestro, en donde se nos ha enseñado a pensarnos desde la desesperanza, a pensarnos desde lo inamovible, a pensarnos desde lo que no puede ser, desde lo que no va a cambiar, de lo que ya es y va a seguir siendo así, hoy por hoy construir otras esperanzas es también parte de la apuesta política. Y una educación, que sea una educación democrática, tiene que permitir la construcción de ese sueño posible, de ese sueño justo, de esa esperanza para una vida más plena y mucho más completa, más cabal y justamente más justa para todos y todas. Bueno, creo que estoy ahí en los 10 minutos y
Muchísimas gracias, Fernando. Qué gusto escucharte. Nada, un placer, la verdad que saludos a la gente que nos está saludando en el chat también. Qué gusto saber que están atentos y que estamos de tantos lugares del mundo. ¿Verdad? Eh, Antes de continuar, recuerdo, están las traducciones para la gente que habla otro idioma o que entiende parte nomás, pero es más cómodo escuchar en otro idioma. Tenemos en inglés, en portugués y en árabe. El del árabe está cuando, o sea, tiene que poner el clic del chino. Unas cuestiones técnicas, pero está la traducción, así que esperamos puedan escucharnos sin ningún problema. Continuamos, está con nosotros y nosotras la compañera Liliana Buitrago, que es investigadora, activista y docente en la colectiva Mujeres, Cuerpos y Territorios y del Observatorio de Ecología Política en Venezuela, además de ser miembro del Pacto Ecosocial e Intercultural del Sur y de la Plataforma Latinoamericana y Caribeña por la Justicia Climática, que va a tratar del horizonte de la justicia social, ambiental y económica. Muchísimas gracias, Liliana, por compartir con nosotros. De vuelta 10 minutitos para este momento. Gracias.
No, muchísimas gracias por la invitación. De verdad, celebro mucho esta Semana de Acción, nuestra solidaridad, nuestro apoyo más grande a las compañeras y compañeros de la Argentina que están en este momento dando una batalla que es por todas y todos también en la región. Bueno, frente al avance de absolutamente todas las fuerzas que impiden el sostenimiento de la vida y la educación es precisamente uno de esos espacios, de esos lugares en donde la vida se enseña a sostener, enseñamos a sostener la vida, pero aprendemos también a ser comunidad, a, a reflexionar sobre nuestras comunidades que son tan importantes y un poco de eso también yo quisiera hablar hoy, ¿no? En donde también pues quisiera compartir un poco eh, cómo esto de la justicia ambiental, la justicia ecológica, está precisamente ligada a la transformación del mundo, ¿no? Y a una educación que sea transformadora. Y en ese sentido, pues un poco hablarles de la experiencia que desde el Pacto Ecosocial e Intercultural del Sur y algunos otros espacios que ya has mencionado, hemos venido reflexionando sobre cuán importante es poder pensar la justicia social, que es justo de la que hablaba ahorita Fernando, con imbricada y inseparable de la justicia ambiental, de la justicia ecológica, ¿no? Y esto porque, bueno, precisamente en un momento de crisis civilizatoria global, en donde se nos acaban las categorías y las explicaciones para dar cuenta de lo que estamos pasando, ¿no? En este umbral de transformación hacia otros mundos, ¿no? Hacia otro mundo que realmente nos tiene un poco en ansiosos, pero también ansiosos y ansiosas, pero también en búsqueda, ¿no? De alternativas y de posibilidades de reconstrucción de los hilos del hilo democrático, de las instituciones, etcétera. Pues la educación es central, ¿no? Es central para pensarnos otra manera también de relacionarnos con la naturaleza, que es fundamental para poder transformar la situación en la que nos encontramos, en donde el racismo, el pensamiento moderno desarrollista que nos interpela, que nos pide, que nos demanda explotar la naturaleza de manera ilimitada, eh, se unen, ¿verdad?, a las deudas históricas coloniales y patriarcales también, ¿no? Porque es sobre principalmente los cuerpos feminizados y los trabajos feminizados que estas dominaciones y explotaciones ocurren. Pues bueno, estamos interpelados a tratar de buscar y mover todas las bases epistémicas, ¿verdad? Las formas de aproximarnos al conocimiento y a los conocimientos para dar cabida a otros mundos posibles que hagan que podamos sobrevivir, ¿no? Como especies. La situación es súper grave, yo
The
creo que
situation is very severe. I think that this moment It's not a time to do a mapping of where we are ecologically, because we feel it in the constant heat, in the droughts, in the deforestation, and in the end, it's a development model. Every time we dig in and we try to look for new causes of the situation we're in, we see that there's a problem with the current model. There is a problem with how we have been relating with nature and the resources. But beyond the resources, it also has to be the relation we have with nature that is not sustainable, and we cannot keep up with this. This way of relating to nature causes pollution, scarcity of resources, and also violence and inequalities, social inequalities. And these are linked to the eco-territorial inequalities. And this is something that was very clear with the pandemic. And we see that it's important to link nature with economy. And it's important also to take in consideration women in particular. So we need to generate a different world, and we need to take care of ourselves among humans and beyond humans. In the launchment with Claxon, Banana Shiva said that the pact is a calling to reconnect to nature. And this is what I'm talking about. We need to think how we connect now to nature. We have to put nature in the center of care. Nature takes care of us as well. We don't take care of her, she takes care of us. So in that sense, the transformative education is an education that works on that link, and it's a link that is joined to the community, the possibility to generate spaces where other worlds are possible, not only the modern world as we know it, and is so dependent on fossil fuels, but also other forms of being and be in harmony with the planet. And this will result in a different concept. It's like it's basically a different understanding of everything, of how we understand it right now. Different art, economy, the race, breeding people, and also the spiritual world. Everything, the concept, all these concepts are linked with our relationship to nature. So we're talking about new knowledge, new forms of seeing the current problems. So we have to break with the dualism of men, women, north, south, earth, heaven, private and public. So we need to show the diversity that there are and exist. We need to change this culture of exploitation that we're living. And I'm mentioning this in this space to talk about this, to discuss this issue, and also to analyze the problems that are a threat to education right now, the transformative education, but also it's also an opportunity to rethink our job, the market, food, our relationship with different churches, as well as in those spaces, how the fundamentalism is threatening diversity and try to homogenize everything, including education, or eliminate the diversity that are implicit in every transformative process. Just want to start the debate. But I don't want to finish without saying that if we talk about justice, we need to also talk about debt. All the debt, the colonial debt, the gender debt, the debt with nature, the ecological debt that we currently have as a civilization. So we can talk about justice. We need to see all these debts and to think how we can repair society, repair nature, and also how to build process of healing to avoid this situation to happen again, this destruction model, that it won't happen again, that is destroying every possibility we have right now to restore. So we cannot talk about social justice without environmental justice, because this situation is unsustainable. We need to have the ecosystems that sustain the spirituality and also all the material things on earth. So I'm talking about one word and also different words coexisting and talking to each other. Like Fernando was saying, we have to build dialogues in between ourselves. Thank you so much. Thank you, Liliana. Thank you so much to both of you to respect the time allocated. For us, it's always very important to respect the time allocated. Also, I invite you, encourage you to write your comments and your questions on the chat box. We're receiving all the greetings and all the messages that you're sending us. Now I want to give the floor to Nelsie, who is the coordinator of CLADE, and she's going to talk. She's the CLADE General Coordinator, and she has also 10 minutes to share with us. Thank you so much, Angeles. Thank you so much to the 98 people who are present in this event right now from different places of the continent and other continents. A big hug to our colleagues from hacia, also from Africa, and also from the Southeast, from Europe, and all the GCEs present in this meeting. We're celebrating our 25th year in the GCE. Very special greetings to the GCE. After listening to Fernando and Liliana, it has inspired me to bring this here, what they talk about, to have a dialogue, because it's very important, especially in the area of education. Without dialogue, we cannot build any transformative education or any education for democracy, the democracy that we aspire to, not the one we have right now. We still have a long way to go in terms of learning about democracy. And in that sense, education has a lot to do. That's what we think in CLADE, because the daily practice of a democratic education teach us to be democratic. Only practicing democracy, we learn democracy. So this is another principle of the transformative education, is to learn by doing. Democracy is not a theory. No, well, it is also a theory, but it's especially a practice. So dialogue, democracy, also what Liliana mentioned, this vision, interconnected view, integral view of the world, of ourselves as human beings, of the planet, of ours being connected to the planet, connected to each other. How is not possible to educate in pieces, in a fragmentative way? One thing is the human relations, one thing is physics, one thing is this and that. So these are different codes that we talk about, but this also fragment us as human beings, as like learning math is not life learning, a learning for life.
Una habilidad, una fortaleza, una habilidad fuerte.
It's not a soft skill, it's a hard skill, because this is what allows us to coexist with each other. All these keys and the key of the justice, social justice, environmental justice, and economic justice are substantial for democracy. Otherwise, we cannot have democracy if we have inequalities, if we continue having big groups that are still marginalized by a system which is existence is marginal, which is only subordinating and exploiting people. So I think it's very provoking this, because it invites us to think on this transformative education, which is the education we strive for in CLADE, as an education, as a very complex education in the rigorous terms. We need to understand its complexity, because we are all interconnected and interlinked. We need to educate in order to obtain climate or social justice. We need to learn about nature. We need to coexist with our brothers and sisters and with other species as well that are in our planet. It is very important to think about this with a very long perspective, the fight for the human right to education. In the last assembly, we spoke about social justice. We spoke about care as a prospect for the education that we want, for the education we're striving for. We're not fighting to have more money or more tools for education. Our fight is not to have more technological mechanisms or how to digitalize education, because if we digitalize education, we're going to solve our problem. It's not neither to have a question of having more finance. We do want more finance for public education, of course. We want less debt. We don't want austerity. We want tax justice so we can invest in education and to guarantee education. Of course, we want all of that. But we also want digital sovereignty. We don't want the digital instruments that are captured by corporations, because corporations only does not provide us technology. They take things away from us, because this is what they are aimed to do. They are aimed to be a lucrative company. We do want digital tools, but not just as such. We want them because we want to fight for our struggle. We need to provide more education in our public systems, and we need to provide more skills for our teachers, and we want to provide more tools to our communities, because they also need dignifying opportunities. We need to strengthen our women and our men, their capacity. This is the education we want. This is the education I'm talking about. And now, in their CLADE's point of view, this education has immense power to transform the world, especially the world we want. This world that we want and that we know is possible. We need to educate ourselves to live in this world that we want. And this means also to challenge our public educational systems. Our public education is ours. And the challenge is to help us unwrap the belief on our system, to believe, to not continue believing in the myths of the neoliberal narratives, individualism narratives, and patriarchal narratives that they have made us believe that they are the only ones and the only way to continue. All these narratives that we have seen and that are inside of us are very important, so we can stop believing in them and to start believing in the different possibilities of other worlds, sustained worlds that is based in solidarity and collaboration, etc. And in respect as well. Respect for others, respect for the world, respect for nature. An education that help us to alter or modify this reality, to shift this reality, not to be afraid of shifting these things. And we need to understand that only if we are together, we will be able to transform ourselves and transform the world in the world that we want to live in, or the world that we deserve. Because the world we have now is not the world we deserve. We deserve something much better. So this is CLADE's proposal. We do believe in the human right to education. We do believe that it is key to continue with our fight to guarantee education, but we don't want just any education. We want this education. And this is all from me. Ángeles, you've got the floor now. Thank you very much, Nelsie. Now we're going to open we're going to do a reflection of this first block before we continue with the second block. You are welcome to share questions. I know that we are many people in this event, so let's try to do it in the chat box. So we have 1 minute. I see that Rifa Sabat is with us, which is the president of the Global Campaign of Education, who is also the Arabic coordinator for the campaign. And I just wanted to say hello to Rifat and thanking him for joining us and for and I also want to give him my solidarity for the universities and the students in Palestine who have been and continue being destroyed in Gaza and during this terrible moment that they are living at the moment, unfortunately. Thank you, Nelsie. I agree with you. Let's now open the debate on the basis of the presentation of the two questions. The first question has already been answered from where we have heard, but it's also important to share. The first question is, do you know what the prospect of the education is going to be? What do we want to transform and how? Liana, Nelsie, and Fernando have already spoken about this in depth, but it's important to add more elements. And the second question is the following. What are the pitfalls of the transformative education? What other sectors propose? We have seen differences in the transformation and their human perspective, and the other narratives or debates on transformation and on transformative education is what leads us to this question. What are the pitfalls of the transformative education that other sectors are proposing? This is something I've also added. We need to talk about sustainable energy and this world in which we want to live. We need to, what do we need to pay attention to when we talk about transformation? This is what the question is about. I'm not sure if there is any other question in the chat. Please give me a couple of minutes so Liliana and Fernando can respond. I see that lots of people send their greetings in the chat. Let's start with Fernando and then Liliana can answer. With regards to the question, what are the pitfalls for transformative education? We need to understand that many of the categories of education in which we move, or which the social movement moves, we see that there are many categories that have been included in the neoliberal speech. We can all have a critical mind, and obviously a multinational will think different to what we will think. We need to know what our political position is, because this is what is going to allow us to differentiate ourselves with other proposals. Going back to Freire said, it's in favor of who, against who, and with who. It's important to study this. We cannot fall into these pitfalls. We need to find out, we need to differentiate and see when there is a pitfall. This is something that I've been thinking about in the time that I've been allowed to speak. But to start, I think what I have said is a good introduction to answer this question. Now, thank you, Fernando. Let's go to Liliana now. The question is very nice because it makes you reflect about a lot of things. But it's got to do with the sustainable issues. Everything that is environment, everything that comes from the environmental sector and economies, all the new forms and economies to provide us a solution. All of this has got to do, or they've been pre-formulated by the ones that have made the problem. These are false solutions. The solution for the climate change that proposed by the corporations are false solutions. We need to talk about these false solutions so we can be trapped on this green colonialism debate. We need to understand that we still live in this exploitation system. The sustainable development is also important. In Venezuela, we have a movement for seeds that say that it's got nothing to do with being sustainable, but being a sustainable development. The key word was development. We need to see what is holding this capitalist system. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to create alternatives because we're going to be stuck on this pitfall. This doesn't mean that there are other people that are also presenting good projects, but the basic problem is that, for example, like what we say in Venezuela, we want to eat 3 arepas, but we only have one, so you have to divide it. And this is more or less the concept of what I'm talking about. This is happening already, and there are a lot of people being left behind from this educational system. The pitfall is also that they tell us that there is very little, but there is not very little. There is enough. We just need to distribute it accordingly. We need to share. And this is what is happening in education as well, when we talk about transformative education. A lot of people are being left behind.
Muchísimas gracias. Voy a leer dos preguntas más que aparecieron en el chat. Ya veo que Fernando ya respondió la tercera. Y después le damos unos minutitos más para responder y pasamos al segundo bloque, ¿sí? Entonces, la primera pregunta tiene que ver con qué criterios podemos tener claramente, ¿verdad?, en el campo de la negociación política e incidencia para lograr esta transformación educativa. Si los actores educativos privados en qué medida son aliados y cuándo dejan de serlo en esta perspectiva de transformación. Y la otra pregunta, pongo todo junto para poder hacer el bloque, ¿verdad? ¿Cuál sería el rol de los y las docentes en este proceso de transformación de la educación? Se refiere a la transformación de nosotros y nosotras en este proceso. Nada, serían las dos preguntas. Entonces le pediría a Fernando, a Liliana y Nelsi si querría... Entonces te doy la palabra como para responder a todas las que fue del primer bloque y la del segundo bloque, si te parece. Entonces así hacemos como comentario final de reflexiones de este primer bloque. Vamos, Fernando, contigo.
In terms of what the teachers have to do in this process, I think the key thing here is we need to teach that there's the possibility of having a different world than the one we have right now. Maybe this phrase is a cliche, but I don't think it is, because the neoliberal culture, this individualism is what it's doing is to stop believing in the fact that another world is possible. We have to retake the concept that there are other worlds that are possible beyond the ones we know. I think that's one of the things that we can do, and we have. And also the second thing is politics has a main role. It's important to teach on politics. And also what I've been saying about hope, we need to build hope. I think it's part of our job. And what are the criteria that we need to take into account for the transformative education? If the players, the private players, or are key or not, I think that the ones who are allies are the ones who help us to build a more an education that is more just, less uneven. I think the ones who are allies are the ones who are working towards the same goal as we are. I think that the main political constructions are the ones that are built from the ground. And I think that will be my recommendation. We need to listen what's happening on the ground. And from there, we need to build policies. Thank you. Thank you, Fernando. Liliana? The education that transforms and liberates is an education that it goes beyond the concept that we know. Some colleagues are thinking from different spaces about the logics that teach how to be cruel. For example, there was a comment of the war that is happening right now, so we need to show our solidarity. And these are also based on the education for how teaches how to be cruel. We can not think of cruelty and war as a normal thing. We cannot think that bodies are disposable. We cannot think that there are some people who are more worthy than others. I think we need to think of community, how to strengthen the relationship within the communities, and this should be the center of education. This goes beyond public because it also teaches how to relate differently with each other, with nature. So we have to expand the vision that we have, and we have to teach that there are other ways of being in community and also as an individual, but also including other dimensions. For example, there are colleagues that talk about terricism, that they talk about body and territory. So these are these notions that they unite different dimensions from our colonial knowledge cannot see. So the spiritual cannot be separated from the earth, from the material world. My colleagues talk about the terricidio, femicide, terricide together. So these categories that unify different perspectives, and they say a lot, and teach us how to think as teachers. We need to think of what we talk, what are we talking about, how do we act within our educational space. And we need to think if we're adding to the conflict, or which is based on cruelty, or we're doing the opposite. So there are other words where I think can give us some guidance, not to repeat the history, but to rethink our practices and our ways of being, and the ways we act as teachers or mothers. And we have to break this dichotomy between our different things, the different ways of being. I cannot be a mother. If you're a teacher and you're a mother, you cannot separate both concepts. You are a whole, and we need to unite these two concepts. And this is very important. Thank you. Thank you, Liliana Nelsi. You have the floor. There was so much to say, but then after listening to Fernando and Liliana, then there was too little to say. And since we don't have a lot of time, I basically will say the following. We need to be super alert because there's too many seductive discourses out there that rapidly trapped us. And this seductive discourse takes our categories, transformative, etc. It turns them around, refill them with a different concept, and give communicate them back to us. We think that we're talking about the same thing, but we are not talking about the same thing. This type of thinking, critical reading is very important. It's very important that our educational spaces in school and out of school teach us how to do it and strengthening with different tools to do it, because to read critically the world allow us to propose alternatives and other words, like we've said. And there's an educational process there. That's where education is, because there's a lot to learn from it. I think that's the first thing. The second thing I would like to say is that if we are alert, it's easy to realize where the pitfalls are. Because everything that doesn't go towards life, even though, I don't know, they say it very nicely, is a pitfall. Everything that goes towards the accumulation of power, wealth, subordination, even though they say it very beautifully, it's a pitfall. So we need to identify the pitfalls, and that's easy, but we need to be clear, and we need to be alert and have the horizon clear in front of us, because the education cannot fragment the hearts, the spirits, the bodies, the minds, and the knowledge of people. I think that it's fundamental that the ones who are fighting to the human right to education, we cannot fragmentate. We cannot read our struggle as a separate struggle from other struggles. Our struggle is a struggle with the feminists, with the ecologists, with the popular economists, with the farmers, with the indigenous people. We, the ones who fight for the right to education, we must lead with the example. Means we need to dialogue also. We need to speak to each other. We need to work together, because otherwise we're in the action contradicting what transformative education is. I'm not going to talk nothing else today. I'm just going to listen. Thank you so much, Elsie. Thank you so much, Fernando and Liliana. It was a pleasure to spend the morning with you. Thank you all for being here. There are a lot of reflections, very beautiful reflections on the chat, so I encourage you to read them so we can keep having this dialogue, so we can think of different horizons. Now we're going to start the second block, where we're going to talk about the educational practices towards social justice, how we can develop this view. So we have to be alert, as Nancy has said.
Muchas gracias, Ángeles.
Thank you so much, Ángeles.
Saludos, muchas gracias. Que estés muy bien.
Muchas gracias a Ángeles, a Fernando, Liliana, Nelson.
Thank you, Ángeles and Liliana, Nelsie, to all of you who joined us in this first blog. My name is Jorge Cabrejos. I am very happy to be your moderator for the second block, which is educational practices towards social justice. We're going to follow the same structure of the first block. And the idea is that after talking about the context and the horizon of the transformative education, it's the time to analyze education as it is right now. But we know that there is not a right context right now. Now we're going to talk about this. So we have different presentators today. So we do have Jorge Cabrejos. Luis Ramón Alvarado, as well as Jesus Juarez, and Álvaro is a teacher specializing in education and digital technologies, who is responsible for the Noptic Intra-Bag initiative. And Aminta Navarro, who is a national coordinator of the Dakar Forum on Honduras. Welcome to all of you. And I'm going to give the floor to Jesus. Jesus, we're going to start with you.
Thank you very much. I hope you see the screen. I'm now going to share this my scenario, which is a country that is a department or an area that is the smallest in the country. We have had a lot of problems with drugs in all senses. This project started 2 years ago, and it started by asking certain questions. And it started with certain initiatives as well, and with a reflection that tells us that the text, the student is the A of the planet, because the pretext is the people, and then with the new forms of stipulating the new forms, or the liberal emancipator is used as a context without taking into account the context. Other possible world is another reflection. And this is aimed at the people that are living in a bubble and are completely outside of what is happening, and how we are adapting to live in this world that we live with the hope of building new worlds. But the most important thing is to reflect that the education for peace and justice, we need to start realizing ourselves, to start looking at each other in the mirror, and start proposing critical thinking, and to consider school as a place to fight the patriarchal systems, and also to have a general deviation of the common sense, because we need everything to work, to be practical, to be simple, to be positive, and also to start questioning ourselves about conceptualism that is leading the world, especially for us, what it means for us. And we need to examine the values that are being imposed, not only in the debate, but also in the practice. To have justice education and past education, we need to start building contra-pedagogies. Like, for example, the cruelty pedagogy or the extermination pedagogy, and the also streaming pedagogy and the apps pedagogies, or the artificial intelligence pedagogy. Not to satanize, but also to build other ways. In our experience, in our communal experience, what is been interesting is to put in the center this cool activities in reference to the problems, social problems of the context. Physics, language, what kind of language we have to teach that talks about violence. What do we need to do specifically to combat chauvinistic approaches? The tool that has helped us has been the art as a module, experiences, daily experiences, not only build these experiences, but to live these experiences. We have done it under multiple intelligences, so we can do this in a more positive way. And we need to stop disrupting these normalized spaces, transform them in other possibilities where the center is the reality in which we live with hope, and also to build other possibilities. In our case, we called it human popular education. because we want to rely on the sources that we have always had for transformative education. We also want to coexist with the teachers. And this is what we call comprehensive education, because we deal with social problems. We deal with popular processes under a human point of view and under a gender point of view. We say human because it has to be organized, it has to be intelligent, and it has to be ethical. So we can have equality, social inclusivity, etc., and freedom, especially for those who are more vulnerable. So after 22 years of initiative, we named this the happiness pedagogy, as it is a communal action policy. If we produce happiness and we live with happiness, this is a true asset. We need to live with dignity despite our daily problems. Pedagogy of the happiness pedagogy is not ingenuous, not naive. We need to live this happiness together. In Mexico, we call this the alegría of del canto, the sing of the happiness. This reality, which is very chaotic and full of violence, there is always a person that deserves to be treated properly. Therefore, we need to live this happiness from our body, from us, from our pain. This is the happiness that we want. This is what is going to allow us to live in peace. And the ultimate goal is to irradiate this justice and peace through a planet ethical behavior. Because we live in community and in a planet, and we all have responsibilities, historical responsibilities in our daily action. We need to think as if we were a communal seed in which we all work and live together. This generates a lot of fruits, which is an example of how to strengthen the public education in Mexico and the region. They are great examples. We need to think in transformation as a transformation that leads us to the communal actions, that leads us to getting in touch with each other. It's important to have relationships among us through assemblies and by listening to the indigenous people as well. Pedagogic, the pedagogy is essential. We need to accelerate critical thinking. And especially, we need to do all of this with affection, with respect, so we can look after each other by promoting the students to be responsible. This proposal that I'm telling you about has a synthesis as well, which is to understand and to make it possible to listen to the voices of the students so they can have the power to when to decide and when to act. And what all of this implies, we need to rely on students so they can live a more just world. That's about it from my side. This is my in Mexico, where our students, in which we have coexisted with, have achieved a lot of objectives. We also have a lot of initiatives like the articulation of the secondary education, etc. And there are many examples, coexistence examples with people, older people, where the dialogue leads us to acknowledge their knowledge, the to recognize their knowledge and to be more responsible citizens in this world in which we live. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Jesús.
Thank you,
Excelente
Jesus.
presentación sobre
Excellent
educación
presentation.
contra pedagogías. Podemos hablar
What you've
después.
spoken about, how we can
Ahora me toca
have
darle
a
la palabra
pedagogy as
a
a
Luis
response, and I'm
Alvarado,
gonna
docente
give the
especialista
word
en
to
educación
Luis
tecnologías
Alvarado,
digitales en México
which is
también.
a teacher specializing in
Adelante,
education and digital technologies in Mexico as well. Hello, good morning to everyone. Thank you for my invitation.
Que se habla de la educación transformadora. Hasta este momento, pues, hemos generado un pequeño proyecto.
We have a project, a small project in Mexico, in Chiapas state, which is one of the poorest states in the country. It's very similar to what they've spoken about in Latin America. And this initiative deal with many approaches to lead us to live in a better world, a better world that at the moment has been led by governments and policies that does not look for a common asset or a common well-being for everyone. We are unprotected. Education forms a key part for the towns or for the villages to develop themselves in an inclusive manner. As a village, historically, we have been a colonized village by the Spanish population, and has also marked us as a village. Our self-esteem has been very low, but it also has allowed us to make a lot of struggles. Education is very important to change this paradigm. We have had the experience of working with the Chiapas state, which is the last state, as you can see, is a state that borders with another country. And we try to provide critical information through technology. Currently, technology has been included in our lives, in all aspects of our lives. Everyone works with technological systems, whether they're children or whether they are adults. They're already working with social media, with communication systems. This is a reality. It's already there, especially after the pandemic. Besides having a benefit, besides technology having a benefit, it also has got other pitfalls and limitations for certain communities, especially because they don't have access to this technology. We lack infrastructure, and communication through internet is not always optimal. So these villages, in these villages, they lack this connectivity, and they cannot use technology as they would like to, not just for consumption, for personal consumption, but for educational purposes. And this has generated lots of problems in our communities. The community has lost values as well. But we do believe that technology is very positive if it's used for education purposes, where students can leverage on it. To bring technology to these villages is a challenge, especially in all the schools, because it's not possible, because not everyone has got the optimal infrastructure to do it. Not every school has got connectivity or access to connections. We also lack, as I said, good infrastructure. So what we propose is to provide these schools with tools, with all machinery that they can use, that other schools are not using it any longer, so they can learn. We have created a library in these schools, and we share information freely. We do a free software, and we also do the redistribution of the digital technologies without any legal problem. So we are able not only to provide them with information as such, digital information, but also bring them knowledge and to create awareness amongst the teachers, so they can use this information in an optimal manner and use this infrastructure in an optimal manner according to their customs and their uses. This is sometimes the projects are imposed, especially in the community where we live.
So we need to see what are the needs in our communities. And we have to use the information that we have freely, so we can use it in our own benefit. And this has been a challenging, but it has been also a very interesting process. We have a digital collection. We use computers that are recycled use. We put an antenna on them, and then we share the information freely. I think the IT technological abilities are low, but I think this is a very easy to use technology, so the community can be part of it. We generate content, which is simple content, but the fact that the population and the community can be part of and use this information, because this information is for the community, not for the world. I think sometimes, I don't know, we don't want to share information, but I think it's important to share the information that we want to share. We also restrict certain content. How do we do this? As I said, through a wireless network. It's very economic, it's affordable, through a router and an antenna that just shares the wireless signal. And this can be accessed from any mobile, cell phone, PC, or laptops. We think that it's important to have this free culture. It's not only about the information, it's about creating awareness of change. The idea is that to create initiative from the community. This is a challenge, but it's possible. The project was born because we were looking for new alternatives. So we're trying to see how we can connect with the world and with each other. The first step that we took was we tried to teach the IT abilities first with the teachers and then with the students. And this was we proposed it as an alternative to the traditional education. It wasn't something that we imposed, but we thought that this was going to create the interest within the community. For us, the fact that we had a lot of cell phones in the community was very difficult, because the cell phones also allows other people to access to the network, and they can obtain different information. So we have to create the awareness in the children. But we're teaching them how to use this information in a responsible manner. We have to preserve our culture, and this is very difficult, especially because there's a lot of access to different information. But we want to promote this awareness of keeping and maintaining our culture as it is. We've had to reach primary schools, secondary schools, and also universities using the same network and generating different content. It was a whole different experiences to be in contact with so many different schools at a community level. These are some pictures of the different schools that we have visited. It was very interesting for the students. And we also try to take these tools, digital tools, to a community, to the community outside schools. So sometimes we use schools to bring the signal, and from there we expand the signal to different parts of the community. So it's like a platform. And this helps the schools, but also the community. The concept of community networks is a new concept. It started in 2018. And we expect the town, the same community, to control this network. This is a closed technology, and they don't allow the access to this, to some information. So sometimes maybe we can create a different tool to benefit different communities. And we believe that we can create and build our own tools. And that's why we use different communities in Chiapas. Navasolo is the community where I work. We started there, which is one of the communities in Chiapas. And we did teach them how to connect. This doesn't solve everything, but it's just a proposal, a way through, it's just a proposal, and through this proposal, we can create the awareness that we want to create, and also propose different solutions for communities where they lack connectivity. This is all the Wikipedia gallery, which are 15 apps from encyclopedias and different dictionaries, and they have access to all of this through a small machine. It's a CPU, and we convert it, and the CPU ends up being the server. We heard that this wasn't possible, but we managed to do it and adapt it to it so it can be accessed via mobile phones. This is a website from the students, so the students can access and create their own websites in their own languages. We're starting different initiatives with different students that they use different languages. And these are other initiatives. We have different projects like Colibri, which is a South American project of free access that is about human rights. So this is the whole gallery that can be accessed through the platform. So anyone can access this platform. I'm going to stop my presentation now because there's a lot to talk about. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Luis, for this presentation about the alternative tools that we have and how we can use these processes to improve the technological abilities, especially in communities where they lack connectivity. Now I'm going to give the floor to Mirta Navarro, Minta, please, you have the floor. Good morning. Greetings to all. Thank you, CLADE, for this opportunity to be able to share briefly what it has been from the practice, all the learnings that we've had in transformative education. We had this initiative to prevent gender-based violence in rural schools, and this initiative was led by CLADE, and it involved Honduras, Haiti, and Nicaragua. The methodology was that we made a decision to retake the knowledge that we have in Latin America, like the methodology of research, action, participative action from a gender point of view. In the study we conducted in Honduras with hundreds of different schools, and the sample was young people in between 10 and 14 years old. What we were looking for is to mobilize knowledge to reduce the gender-based violence in the rural schools. Through our research methodology, we use this methodology because it allows us to participate actively, not only offering a solution to the problems that we live in schools, but also the student is part and it's also responsible to make the research. So all the students participate from the start to the end of the project. They formulate the questions and what is the subject they want to research and what responses they can find to resolve, to sort out the problem. We integrate the local governments, the community, and the students in all the schools. This is also part of the richness that the study gives to the whole project. And aside from the data, I would like to highlight certain points that are essential for an education that looks to transform policies and systems, and especially consciousness and way of thinking. One of the learnings was that we found out that we were used to gender-based violence and different types of violence. So we see them as normal. Cruelty of a student towards another student, the sexual harassment within schools was also a very big trend. And another finding was also statistic data, but also we found some important things. The student keeps believing in the teacher as the person who can help them when they're going through problems in their households. For example, when you have parents that are absent, that they're not in the country, for example, and they have left their children with their relatives because they have migrated. So there's a high percentage of, in one community, 60% of migration to this state. So we found different problems there, like depression and suicidal thoughts in children. And all these problems, all the teachers are aware of these problems, but we didn't think that they were that strong as there actually are. I think that the teachers, they start rethinking about their role as teachers and also as the role that they play sometimes as parents or uncles or aunties, because There are sometimes children who are suffering gender-based violence at home. And this was very interesting. I think that the teachers were saying that they couldn't be different. They couldn't assume that it was a minor problem. That they had to realize that the problem was big enough, and they were aware that they didn't have any tools. They saw this depression in children, all these problems that the children were experiencing. In one of the schools that we found was that children were not sleeping because they were accessing the internet without any restriction, because the parents who live abroad, they send the mobile phones to their children, and the children then they're on the phone the whole night and they don't get enough sleep, and this result in a child who is depressed, sad, and also tired, who is not able to comply with their with their homework.
Con perspectiva de género es que encontramos como
Is that we found that one of the learnings, collective learnings, was that when the community, youth and children and authorities of the local government are aware by themselves of the problems that are having, then they are able to face it. And then they are able to find faith and hope. Because what's happening, which is something that this research has been finding, is that we are living in a situation that is an indifferent situation. And this indifference comes because we are overwhelmed with these problems, with the problems of gender-based violence and the different forms of violence, where everything seems normal. So to be aware, and that the local authorities are realizing again that it's in their hands to transform this situation, and that they can make local public policies to prevent this gender is important. The local government can also dignify these centers by doing or providing the simple things, by transforming bathrooms, by doing electrical fence in a ground, so there is no bullying, so there isn't any aggression among the students. These are the measures that we also undertook. One of the local governments undertook, which is what made the transformation be possible. It was immediate transformation, but we also need to transform each other, not to be indifferent to these situations, and not to stop validating the cruelty that we see every day in the school, because children are often violent. But we need to understand their situation. But we do need to change the situation. The educational community needs to feel aware of this and play their role. The educational community, the directors, the principals, and the teachers are very important for these actions. They are educators, they are teachers. So that's why often what happens is that these teachers are researchers, for example, and they're not interested in what's happening to the students. We need to have a human perspective, especially teachers need to have a human perspective, and all of us who participate in this educational process. The transformation of the system is not going to happen if we are indifferent to the gender-based violence that we are seeing, and if we also are indifferent to the violence that we see in the schools on the part of other people that do not form part of the educational system, that make children be afraid, because we live in this culture and the afraid culture. One of the learnings that is very important is that the center can be recovered, can have a recover, and it needs to learn that it's a center that will look after children and not be as insecurity space. We need to stop being indifferent. We need to start working collectively. We need to work together. We need to have faith again in us, because we lost a lot of the faith as well. We are led by individual approaches. So we need to start learning from collective actions, because it's often easier to work on your own. But when we are on your own, you are only tending to have more aggressivity, to have more indifference, and that we devaluate the violent actions that we see. We need to strengthen the system, a system that encourages us to be more human, and to tell us that there is no way to change because is being given. We need to make changes, and not because we're poor we cannot make changes. We need to forget about that conception, that notion that because we are poor we cannot make changes. The public systems need to start seeing these situations. We need greater investment. We do not want austerity, as Nelson said. We need quality education, good quality education, but we need to create awareness. We need to strengthen hope, and we need to strengthen the community with the aim, with a clear aim, and with a clear perspective that says that we are not going to be indifferent any longer, because the pain of others should not be indifferent to us. We need to fight more for not having an individual approach, to live in a community, because this is the only way to have strategies with the local government. Gender-based violence is not only for children, it occurs as well amongst other participants like teachers, and they do not report this violence because they consider this to be a normal system. Besides doing the research, another learning is that the local governments are integrated according to the research from the different processes that we carry out, so we can make the changes through the public policies. And by calling other actors as mayors, as it happened in our country, there was a specific mayor that made alliances with other actors to prevent gender-based violence in the schools, inside and outside. The advantage to prevent gender-based violence in schools is that we will be promoting positive behaviors, and we will be promoting men and women of the future that will be respectful and that will understand each other as human beings, and that are not indifferent to the pain of others. We need to be less individual and work more collectively. This has been my approach. This week we are looking for social justice as well, because social justice also means not to be indifferent, because we want to construct and build and transform, but this construction also has to do with our conscious, and the system, educational system, is a way to transform us so we are more sensible and more sensitive and not so indifferent to the problems that we are seeing in the schools and in the country. We are not units or countries that are not related to each other. We are all interconnected. And this is something that we need to understand and we need to build on and we need to strengthen. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Aminta, for this reflection on the need to transform the educational system, not only in the face of gender-based violence, but in all processes. Transformative education deals with this precisely, and thank you for this reflection. Before going to the end of this event, I'm going to give the floor to Nelson Lizarazu. Nelsie? No, it's just half a minute. Because we want to first thank you all for the experiences shared, which are very inspiring, and also that makes us believe that it is possible to transform and to have a transformative education, but also to remind ourselves that IT is going through very tough times at the moment. The Haitian population, especially children and youth and schools and universities are going through a very tough time and it doesn't seem to come to an end. So I just wanted to send a solidarity greeting to IT. Thank you very much, Nelson. We are coming to an end and to this event for this Global Week for Action from the Peruvian campaign for the right of education. We are very happy to be part of this event and thank you for the invitation. You must remember that this event is a best way to meet virtually to see our prospects and also to make this right a transformative right. These presentations that we have heard in this last block were aimed to do reflections and to see what strategies we could implement to comply with this objective in each of our countries. Before coming to an end, I'm going to present the jingle of this Global Week for Education. Thank you very much to everyone, and I hope to see you very soon.
Toca el tambor, educación transformada, educación de paz. Toca el tambor, ¡únete! Educación transformadora, la educación transforma. Toca el tambor, educación transformada, para la vida la educación. ¡Anda! Educación transformadora, educación transforma. Toca el tambor para transformar el futuro. Demandamos para todos. ¡Ya! Educación transformadora.
Semana de Acción Mundial por la Educación, SAME 2024.